Hello, everyone, and welcome to Career 180 Women in Security. Today, I'm joined by Amy Dearwester, who is an application security consultant. And she's going to join us today to talk about her complete Career 180, moving into a job in security. And I know that, Amy, we've had a couple years relationship talking about, your desire to come to security. So when you recently got this role, I was so excited. I know I immediately begged you to come be episode 4. So I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome, and I'm honored to have been invited.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's jump right in. So I just established that security was not, your first foray, your first career choice. So I wanted to understand more about your background, what you pursued, first, second, third.
So I think the thing that's most shocking to people is that I originally went to school for costume design.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I decided I like to eat. So
Same, guilty.
yeah, so I had to switch paths, and then so when I started my professional career, I actually have something in common with Ginny Rometty, which is my first job was a receptionist job.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And where was that?
Oh, my very first one was at a car lot.
Oh, fun. And here you are in security. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really kind of neat because from there, my roles morphed into not at the car lot, but I ended up in an assistant HR position, and then the economy went south, and so I ended up having to go back to school, and so I went back to school for computer science, which led me to IT, and I spent more than a decade in IT before I came to security.
Can I ask? So that's interesting. So you went from an HR role, and then when you went back to school, you went to computer science. So what influenced your decision to pick computer science when you went back?
So working in HR and especially doing payroll and understanding pay scales, I understood that for me in HR, the top I could reach was about here.
Mhm.
IT started about here. So if I really wanted to maximize what I could earn, I was like, why stay here? And I could go over here. And plus I had the knack for it.
Okay.
So that was the main influencer there.
Was there anything particularly interesting when you said you had a knack for it? Was there, something in your role or that you were reading online? Like what kind of piqued your interest?
Well, I had at school, like in high school and everything, we had started doing computer stuff. And so, they did little programming things at school and I was good at it. And I liked computer games and I liked it. So it just seemed kind of like a natural thing to go for. Plus I had encouragement to do so. Because, I had friends that were in IT and they were like, you could do this. It's like, okay.
So tell me a little bit more about that. I would love to know more about who has been influential, both in getting you into security and then along your career path once you started entering IT.
So the top person is going to be my husband. Um, he and I actually have been friends. We were friends way before we got married. Um, and he's probably my biggest cheerleader. He he always pushes me to do more. He knows what I'm capable of. Um, let's
And
see.
is he in the IT field?
Yes, so he
Okay.
was in IT first, and then encouraged me. He was part of the encouraging of going back to school.
Yeah.
He got he got into IT before I did, and he was like, "You could totally do this." So when I got into IT, now the funny thing is that he's always been on the application, or sorry, he's always been on the operations side of the house.
Okay.
But when I got in, on the application side. So that's where I actually found that I gravitated towards like the programming and understanding of that. So we kind of joke that we have a house divided, kind of like the Star Wars thing, operations versus applications. So that's our little joke in the house. Um, but yeah,
Which one's the dark side? I gotta know. I'm kidding. Oh yeah. I get it. I get it. I get what you're throwing down. Okay.
anyhow, so Interestingly enough, several years ago, he moved into a security role.
Okay.
And so when as he was learning, he would talk about the things he was learning, and it was really interesting. And I was like, wow, that sounds interesting. That sounds kind of fun. And do you think I could do it? And he's like, absolutely. So he was probably my biggest influencer as far as wanting to come over. Because honestly, I didn't know a lot about it before.
Hmm.
I mean, security was always just kind of those people who make rules to make our lives harder.
Right.
You know, um, after, you know, after learning what he was learning, I was like, wow, there's a lot more to this, and there's a lot of opportunity. And it just resonated.
I love that. So I know that, I came to discuss with you, different security roles and things like that. Was there anybody in particular here at IBM that steered you towards security?
Towards consulting.
Yes.
Yeah, so talking to different people, trying to figure out where do I fit in? What can I do?
Hmm.
Um, so I did something kind of kooky.
I love
Um,
it. Let me hear the cookie.
so somebody actually suggested to me, like, well, have you ever thought about consulting? And I thought, well, I haven't not thought about consulting, but I'm a look before you leap kind of person.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, I want to talk to somebody who's in a consulting role before I decide that that's something I'd want to do or not. So I did something weird, and I went and I looked for jobs that were posted internally for consultants, and I found a hiring manager who was hiring, and I figured, but here's my thought process: any manager that's hiring for consultants probably has at least one working for him or her.
Right.
So that was like that. So I
It's
found one.
perfect advice. Perfect advice.
I
I
found
tell a lot of folks to seek that way. It's really smart.
and it's amazing. So I approached it not give me a job, but I found a manager, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hi, I'm Amy. I'm thinking about moving into security, and I'm considering consulting as a role. Do you have anyone on your team who'd be willing to spend 30 minutes talking to me about the role?" And he said, not only did he say yes, he said yes, and can you send me your resume?
Yes.
Which
Great manager.
was very surprising to me. I was very surprised. So I did, and he did hook me up with one of his consultants, and she and I had a great conversation. Absolutely clicked, and I was like, yes, I want to do this. This sounds great. And amazingly enough, uh, I was hired.
That's incredible. And so I'm curious because often I give that same advice, and I'm really loving to hear you say that you proactively took that step to reach out and talk to somebody who's actually hiring the role. Super, very smart. So as you started talking to the person that he connected you with, and if I key back to you saying you went back to school for computer science, is there anything that you needed to do to upskill or reskill to enter into that security role? And did that person guide you, or what does that look like?
Well, I actually did things beforehand because I'd actually been looking for 2 years before I found a role.
Okay.
So when I decided that I wanted to pursue security, I started doing education things. I think the best thing I did for myself was I sent myself to SAMS.
Did you? So
Yeah,
you funded yourself and went.
I did.
Wow.
I did. This is
Okay.
back when we actually could go in person.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
the good old
so
days.
and I'll and I'll be honest, I was nervous. So SAMS has a course for pretty much entry level, like the prereqs are you know what a computer is,
Right.
basic computer skills. Um, and I decided I'm gonna go. And I was real nervous, and I was like, oh, do I deserve to be here? And yes. And actually, what I learned in that class was I knew a lot more than what I thought I knew. Yeah, I was really surprised that my years of IT had prepared me more than I thought. It was really encouraging. And plus, I tell you, if you ever get a chance to go to a SANS event in person, go.
Hmm.
The energy there is just awesome, and people are so accepting. And I think that was really also encouraging for me because, I'm meeting all these people, and at first I was kind of like, oh, I'm, I don't know if I should be here. And I'm like, why not? Welcome, come on in. What can and I got to go to these extra events at night where the instructors, would have little presentations ready, and I got to see some really crazy stuff. It was awesome. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, it just opened my eyes to how wide this field is and how much there is to do. And it was exciting. And I was like, and collaborative. I think that was key for me. All these people, didn't matter who you worked for, the fact they came together and they wanted to collaborate, and just that feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was like, I want to be part of this.
So I love hearing that you had such an accepting community there. I think that's the thing that I get from most people is that they are so surprised how welcoming the security community is and how it's no matter race, creed, color, gender, right? It's a come one, come all. And so, I'm so glad you were welcomed in that way. And I wanted to get your specific bend because I do hear that there's this fear sometimes in women that, um, that they may not, some of those things that you said were, oh, do I belong here? Did you feel very welcomed as a woman? Have you ever felt any barriers in your career from being a woman?
Um, yes, I have had barriers. I mean, I
Okay.
try not to focus on them, to be honest with you. Um, I think though, getting into security, I think the barrier is more than just gender, though. I think it's very hard for anyone to get in, because, so like, for example, you look at job descriptions out there. I can't tell you how many job descriptions I looked at that were supposedly entry level that wanted manager level certifications.
Mm,
And I'm thinking, okay, I know enough, you know, I knew that was a manager level certification because, my husband has been in security for years and things like that. But how many other people know that, especially trying to get in? Um, I think, and on top of that, as a woman and knowing that we have a tendency to, if we don't match the job description 90 to 100%, we won't apply.
right.
I think that's a barrier. But I also think that as far as barriers go, I think being a mid career changer is a special niche, a special area. Because what I was finding when I was trying to move in was I found lots of programs for early professionals, for people in college or even before, but there's not really programs for people like us, unless sometimes there's re-entry programs, but
Right.
that doesn't fit me either because I'm not re-entering. I was already in.
Switching.
Right, I was
Hmm.
switching. So I think that's a barrier for mid-career professionals as a whole.
I don't know. You just gave me a great idea. I think we need a collab and create something for someone. So in the absence, because there does seem like that there's a vacuum there. What would be your biggest advice for somebody who's in your position that says I'm kind of tired of this lane that I'm in, and security sounds exciting. What do you think is the best advice that you could give somebody trying to make that switch?
Build the community or get involved in the community. Um, if I think getting yourself out there. So like outside of doing SANS, like I went to ISSA, things like that. Just get out there and get known.
Okay.
I think that's important. And reaching out to people, that's important. And I guess also when you're doing your networking and reaching out to people, I think knowing ahead of time that not everyone's going to be like, hey, welcome and come in and want to be your best friend. Knowing that ahead of time is good. But on the other hand, don't be afraid to reach out.
And what if I get this question a lot, and so I would love to hear your advice since you were so effective at it. Clearly, you're in a security role now. What like tools or mediums? It sounds like you use SANS to network. Did you use LinkedIn? Like what did you actually use to reach out?
I used, well, yeah, I did use those things. I used LinkedIn. But honestly, I think the best tool really was looking for people who are hiring and
Okay.
reaching out to those hiring managers and just saying, hi. And I'll share my secret here. So anyone who's ever seen Princess Bride will understand this. I use the Indigo Montoya method.
Okay.
And this is hilarious, but it works because I get nervous when I'm writing an email, like trying to introduce myself to someone new. It's nerve wracking because I'll fixate on, oh my God, who's going to think I'm a crazy person? No. So this is how I get over it. Indigo Montoya, he says, hello, my name is Indigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. I play this in my head every time. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. A polite greeting. Hi, I'm Amy Dearwester. Right? You killed my father. What's our connection? So, there's got to be some kind of connection. So it could be, I saw your job posting, and I'm interested in learning more about it. That's how we're connected. And then prepare to die, set the expectation. Could I have 30 minutes of your time to discuss your opportunity? And just end it with a, thank you. Look forward to hearing from you. And I was surprised more often than not, I got a response. So
That's excellent advice. That's amazing advice. And what I always tell folks is the actual percentage of that working is really high. It's in the 90s. Would you say that?
I was surprised. Yes, it is. I mean, you will get a response. I mean, funny thing is, I remember one of the hiring managers I did this with. I reached out to him and I really liked him because he told me right from the get-go, he's like, okay, he's like, before we even get started, he's like, I know what the job posting says. They didn't post what I asked for. This is what I'm really looking for. And it was not me. Right? And I said, right. Well, I said to him, I said, okay. I said, yeah, I'm just gonna be honest with you. That's not me. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, nobody that's contacted me is what I need. I said, yeah. I said, however, I said, since we booked 30 minutes, do you mind if we keep talking? And he said, sure. Right. And so I told him who I was, told him, that I'm trying to get into the security field, and we just talked for a little bit. And he said, you know what? I'm going to hook you up with some people because I've got some people in mind I think can help you. And he introduced me to two people. And then I reached out to those two people using my Indigo Montoya method, right? And those people I met with, talked with, they introduced me to people. And this kept continuing. And that's how I built my network.
You created a web. You
I
really
did
did.
because
As I'm listening to you, you created a fabric. You created the spider web that eventually led you. That's
yes,
amazing.
yes, I did. And I was just amazed at how many people were willing to say yes and talk to me. I don't talk to all of the people that I met on the regular. Um, but I think that's the other thing that's important too, is like when you do this networking, you do need to make an effort to stay connected to the people and try to make real connections, because I'll tell you, the people that I met, I made real connections with people.
That's great. No, and I appreciate that. I think you have given us such great advice. I mean, I've even taken notes and things that I need to help. So thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your story. But I mean, you've had such great advice that I don't want to leave, I don't want to close today without asking if you have one last thing that you would want to say or encourage anybody who's looking for a career switch. Do you have any parting thoughts or advice?
Stick with it. It's hard, especially when you're getting those rejections. Stick with it. I'd say find a tribe. If you don't have one, find people that are willing to encourage you. So when you're having those moments where you just want to give up, you have to have people that you can talk to that can encourage you.
Yeah.
Because if I wouldn't have had those, I would have given up. I'll be honest with you. There were many times I wanted to give up. But I had a tribe of people, and that's what kept me going.
That's amazing. I call it my squad. You call it your tribe. Some people call it village, whatever you call it. I think that's amazing advice. Thank you, Amy, so much for joining us. And I think the best part about your advice is you are a success story. You are in security. I'm so happy that you shared your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for sharing with us today.